Today's video is a tale of two rivals. Lex Luthor and Gorilla Grodd were at each other's throats often during JLU, so it made sense to put them into one video. Grodd will be mostly still images and explanations since I made him before this channel started, and Lex will have a full regular look. Since you can't read minds like Grodd, I'll share the Gorilla's recipe with you first. This guy was a real head scratcher at first because how could I make a monkey look cartoony and correct in this scale? Where could I even start? Well, right away I think the mutant leader could have a great torso base with that giant chest and overall gorilla-like frame. How about the legs though? My first thought was the giant Batman from that same set, but he wasn't easy to come by at the time because it was well before McFarlane's re-release came along. In trying to make the most of leftover parts that I had, I came upon this Goku figure that I originally bought for his wings. I thought maybe those smaller legs could work as a frame to build upon, and then had the wild idea to just put the whole torso on the neck and use Goku's torso as an extension for Grodd's giant belly. Next would be his head. I started looking at TNBA Robin because of his ears, but the overall head wasn't big enough. I started thinking bigger and went looking through my parts to see if I had any larger heads. I bought a couple of McFarlane's original animated figures to make some Amazos, the gray one is linked above, and that meant I had a Batman and GL head to use. Batman's mask ruled him out pretty quickly, so that left John Stewart's head to be a nice, larger skull to work from. Unfortunately, his ears weren't going to be big enough, so I casted Tim Drake's ears and glued those on. Lastly, the mutant leader had some rather claw-like hands that didn't seem very monkey-like. I started out with Etrigan's hand since he had more square fingers and some fingernails, until I realized later that the big Batman could come in handy after all. His hands were much bigger and would work very well. Okay, let's start the Groddifications. The first thing I'll actually do is a proof of concept sculpting on his elbows and shoulders to add little tufts of fur. Next, I'll just start adding chunks of epoxy on his stomach and legs and then up on his chest to form the right shapes. Let those cure and then add more layers on those and start on his feet. Wait a day and we can really start to see his belly taking shape. I'll add a little epoxy around that collar rim thing to kind of get rid of it and blend it in. From there he kind of takes a big leap in progress because I didn't take too many pictures, but you'll notice I kept adding to his belly to go bigger and bigger. I also added more fur tufts down at his wrists and then sculpted all of his toes with more fur on top of the feet at the ankles. Oh, here's a shot of his toes in progress. I just did one at a time, cutting in toenails and wrinkles gently with an X-Acto knife. For his head, you can see here in my 9-square progress grid how I layered on the epoxy to get to the end result. Start with shaping his chin and nose. Make a bigger nose and add his brow line and top of his head fur. Add his jaw and mouth as well as some neck fur. Then give it a test fit on the body. Not bad. You know, in this sanded form he looks a little like Solivar. He hasn't made my list at this point though. Anyway, I primed the ape thinking I was done, but had more revisions to the nose and made a bigger jaw before repriming him and then painting him. He only needs 4 simple colors to come to life. A light gray for his base body, a darker gray for his fur, and then an all-important yellow-orange for those piercing eyes with black for some details. Oh my Grodd, would you look at that? He worked, and really well too. He scales properly and looks quite a bit more on model than the Mattel version of him. I can't believe I made him from Goku with a torso for a head. Oh, and his actual head is attached via magnets. Here is his scale to the Superman animated series Lex, but that's not the right outfit, is it? With Grodd all done, let's make the correct olive green jumpsuit look for Lex from JLU Season 3 so they can pair better together. Lex's recipe kinda made itself for me. I've used the Gods and Monsters Superman figure enough times now to immediately recognize its potential for Lex's legs, and the torso could pretty easily come from a BTAS Batman since he has the right bigger build yet rounded appearance to his chest and shoulders as well as gauntlet style gloves. Regrettably, that would mean dremeling one of the original figures again though. One change to those legs will be swapping Superman's belt for Deathstroke since it has similar pouches. It's not the perfect 100% accurate look, but it'll do. For his head, I had already made my STAS Lex out of a Slade Wilson head, so I actually cast that one before I painted it. The last thing Slade will donate will be his gun holster for Lex's chest. Alright, let's start modifying him. As I said, I needed to start with painfully dremeling off another BTAS symbol and gauntlet spikes. I think that's still the supreme BTAS torso sculpt, and they're getting harder to come by, so it's a difficult task, but it has to be done. Use the standard Dremel on low for the symbol and then switch to the disc to easily cut off the gauntlet spikes. Batman's gloves are just a hair too long, so I'll mark out where I want to cut them and disc Dremel them lower. Switch back to the regular Dremel to soften those cuts and blend them a bit better. Sand the torso and gloves, and we can already start on the epoxy since his legs don't need any dremeling. Mix up some 2-part epoxy sculpt and start with the tops of his new gloves. Roll a snake, push down all the way around, and smear it down to blend in. Use water for that last part to really smooth it down and help it transition. Move up to his biceps to get those pockets on there. Tear a squarish piece of epoxy and then flatten it on there. Cut off the negatives to get the right shape, and then cut in the pocket cover shapes with your knife. Repeat this process on his other arm and then down on the outsides of both thighs. You'll also want to add a touch of epoxy to fill the hole in Deathstroke's belt where we removed his gun holster. So a little interrupting break here. I actually made the purple and green suit version of this Lex before I had even made Grodd, so I'm kind of recreating his recipe from that. Wait a minute, he's much shorter. Oh right, I did a little torso extension on him so his arm proportions would look right. Or a lot of extending. Also, you'll notice that the previous version of Lex wasn't quite right, so I'll be improving on him with this one, which may eventually make me want to redo the original in the future while watching this video back later. Flatten a snake and wrap it around the waist peg, and then smear anything that wants to squeeze out on the sides. Carefully place him down straight to dry, or you'll end up with what I have here where he's just slightly crooked. Oops. Well, I can't really rip him apart, so I'll just kind of work with it. I needed to do a second layer of epoxy for the shape to work right, and then a third for some slight touch-ups. Okay, Dremel any refinements on the gloves and torso, and then we can start the details. I originally gave my purple Lex a zipper look since that made sense, and I assumed that's kind of what they were going for with his design, but I decided to make it screen accurate this time and make that a gap instead of a zipper. Add his glove details, then his collar, and then his larger belt buckle. The last big thing missing will be his chest holster and straps. I'll start with the ones around his shoulders and then add the horizontal ones on the front and back. That's another big difference on the last one compared to this one. I didn't have the horizontal one on his back for some reason. The final massive difference will be the holster itself. I say massive because look, my original was massive. It's because I wanted to have a functioning holster, so I sculpted over a magnet inside of the gun as well as on the underside of his cardboard holster cover. This time around, however, I want a better, slimmer look, so I'll opt for the SH Figure Arts approach and make 2 separate swappable holsters, one with the gun and one without. I'll cut into the horizontal strap so it won't stick out too much, and then drill a tiny hole for the holster button. No, you know what? I may save this technique for the purple retake of Lex and then use this handy-dandy Super 7 G.I. Joe Baroness working holster for this guy. It still seems a little thick since it's a functioning toy, but it's a much better look than my first attempt. It even comes with a decent enough look-alike of a gun for him. I'll just sculpt on some extra details for it to look a little closer. Alright, time to start painting on him. Lex will need a base olivey green color for the main suit and then a brown for his gloves and belt, as well as cell shading on the black holster and boots. Then your standard skin color, eye whites, and black details. As always, start with dull coat and then paint with thin coats and build up to the color and finish you want. For the highlights, lay those down first and then refine the shape of them with the darker color on top. Alright, he's looking great! Now for an episode-specific accessory. How about the spear and strapped holder from his debut episode, I Am Legion? I got the idea to use Baroness's holster on his chest because I came across her gun strap and thought it would make the perfect base for Lex's canister strap that he'd need. Then I've saved many random geometric plastic shapes so this tube will work perfectly. For the spear, I'm going to use the same technique as my Batman Beyond Stalker staff. Linked above. Oh wait, you haven't seen him yet, have you? I used a wooden skewer stick cut to size and then just sculpted the details needed. Glue the strap and tube and paint everything to match, and voila! Lex can wear the tube and then toss the spear to Grodd. Awesome! You'll notice I changed my mind somewhere near the end that I wanted to see Lex grimacing instead of smirk grinning so as to give him a different expression than what I've done before. I like it, and it really works to have him displayed with the angry teeth next to Grodd. And that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Drop a like if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more monthly content like this and occasional shorts featuring tips or additional customs. Follow me on Instagram if you want to see more customs like these and all of my latest work. After you scroll through my Instagram, come back and leave any requests for characters you see that I haven't made a how-to video of yet. For example, this video was moved up on my schedule because YouTube user Denzens asked if he could see Grodd, so I obliged. Join me next time as we roll into another holiday season, so we'll cover one of the few times a character dressed for the occasion. This one will be Elf Montoya from the opening TNBA episode Holiday Nights. Instead of making both her and Bullock together, we'll look at how I made a different TNBA police officer. In fact, the commissioner himself. Check out the rest of my catalog of videos while you impatiently wait for that next one. Have a good one, and happy customizing.